Welcome back to another episode of the Streamlined Motherhood Podcast. We are in some wild times, my friends, and as if parenting and adulthood aren't hard enough, we're in the midst of a world health crisis, forced quarantines, and families everywhere needing to homeschool their kids. I know so many of you are struggling right now, and this episode is going to meet you right where you are, take you by the hand, and offer some thoughts on where do we go now from here. If you've been feeling scared and uncertain about the future, stay with me for the full episode. This is the Streamlined Motherhood Podcast. I'm Kate Saffle, certified simplicity parenting family life coach and mom of 3. I'm here to guide you back to your intuition, to help you overcome daily overwhelm, and to start feeling confident in the mama and woman you are. Each episode, I'll share tips and encouragement for thriving on your motherhood journey, because this life you're living is way too important to put on autopilot. What a time we're living in, right? It's safe to say that none of us were remotely prepared a month ago for what March would bring. I remember in January believing that the virus would be stalled before it reached the United States. It was wishful thinking. And then we flew to Chicago for a wedding in early February. I was a bit more concerned then, but it was this month that I think that we were all blown away by the impact of the pandemic, and we still don't know the full outcome of it. For many of us, this is incredibly frightening, and that fear is fueled by constant news reports, social media, and conflicting information. Our brains are overloaded with too much information and too much time spent in fight or flight. We're trying to navigate working from home or not working at all, homeschooling kids, quite possibly for the first time, and attempting to stay healthy and pay our bills. If you're just totally overwhelmed and feeling a range of emotions, know that you're not alone. For a long, long time, we've lived in such stability and regularity and with incredible ease. Think about it. I know I've gotten used to having what I want when I want it and not having limitations on where I go and when. That's tough to let go of for sure. But I want you to know this. We as humans are incredibly resilient. And although none of us have lived through something like this before, we can lean on the memories and strength of our relatives and ancestors. Let me tell you a little story about what it looks like to be resilient. My grandmother, Kate, who I'm named after and is my father's mother, was living in Poland during the Nazi occupation during World War II, and as a teenager was captured by the Nazis. She had been on her way to a family birthday party during a time in which no one was supposed to be leaving their homes, and she went as the family representative. She snuck over there, the party was raided, and she was interrogated, threatened with a death, and eventually transported to Germany as forced labor on a farm. She never saw her parents again, and it was decades later until she saw her siblings and remaining family that were still alive. As a child, my grandmother was so nurturing. She grew most of her own food, preserved a lot of it, cooked pretty much everything from scratch, and she was the matriarch of our family. She was also incredibly resilient and hardy due to the devastating struggle she had experienced at such a young age. I also think of my great-grandmother Lillian, who was a working mother during the Great Depression, and the struggle she experienced both in surviving the financial difficulties and being a working mom in a time when women simply didn't do that. How did she survive motherhood and one of the greatest financial disasters of recent history? I want you to think of the stories of resiliency in your own family and the trials your ancestors have overcome. How can you learn from them and see their strengths in you and your children? So much of my personal journey is influenced by my grandmothers that I mentioned, and I've especially had them on my mind this past week as we adapt to a new normal. We've realized that all of the comforts that we took for granted, such as coffee shops and eating out, shopping at Target, and hanging out with friends, are not actually necessary. Sure, they make life more enjoyable, but we can create new versions of enjoyment with what we have available. We're discovering how playing games at home by candlelight is incredibly cozy, and taking a walk around the neighborhood can be just as good as hiking at a more popular trail. I can't go pick up a fancy coffee somewhere, but Kirk and I can enjoy a French press together in the morning, and the connection we have is more fulfilling than a $5 latte. Just like my grandmother and others who went before us, we're cooking every single meal at home and not throwing away a scrap of leftovers, as we don't really want to go to the grocery store until we have to. Kirk made sauerkraut and kombucha yesterday. I've been baking and stretching meals, turning overripe apples into applesauce, and we're remembering how to pare down our lifestyle to just enough. I'm also remembering how back in the day, we were way more aligned with the frugal living and homesteading movement. And so now I'm digging back into some of those old methods that were part and parcel with our earliest days of marriage, and that feels comforting in many ways. It's not that we, the young families living today, don't know how to slow down, simplify, and live more frugally and intentionally. We just haven't had a compelling enough reason to do so. My thought is that although this pandemic is devastating and it is heartbreaking for so many people, we will also come out on the other side of this with stronger values and a sense of what it really means to be family and community. We will value it so much more. I'm hopeful for all of the families like my own that are learning how to spend our days together again and make it work. We aren't all going our separate ways, but finding a way to work, learn, and play within the same home. I know this isn't easy, my friends. Although we've been a homeschooling family in the past and have experience with it, it feels different when you're required to be home and there's no alternative to you being the teacher. If you find yourself homeschooling right now, know that there is no right or wrong way to do it. It doesn't have to be Pinterest pretty. In fact, mine never is. Connecting with your child and finding a rhythm will be the best way to not only survive this, but thrive. Let go of outside expectations and just be as present as you can with one another. Now, if you're working from home, that presents an additional challenge of splitting time between working and schooling children without childcare. That is my current situation, and I don't have childcare anymore unless you count my husband, because a big change for us is that my husband is now also working from home alongside me. This is messy and difficult because we're sharing an office and also a desk. Yeah, that's been a little hard for me to share. And we're doing this all while trying to homeschool, and yet I feel so much gratitude to have him home with me. It's really an experiment right now to see if he can maintain a job from home that normally requires face-to-face time with customers. We don't know if it'll work or even how. If you're in a similar boat, we understand what you're going through. This is such a beautiful opportunity, though, for us to grow in our discomfort and to model problem solving for our kids. We are going to figure this out one way or another. What is wild about my husband being home with me is that this is something we've always dreamed of. You know, the opportunity of being able to work from home together. It's been in our plans for a while that as my coaching business grows, he would eventually stay home to help with the kids and manage some aspects of my business. Wouldn't that be fun? Even though he's still working his normal job from home, it feels like we're creating a new path for ourselves. And I'm really grateful that we get to trial this lifestyle. Despite all of the challenges being thrown at us and the way that our lives are rapidly shifting, we are not giving up on hope. I want to share a quote with you by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and writer of the book Man's Search for Meaning. He said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." I love that quote so much. And that is the truth, my friends. We choose how we want to experience all of this. 10, 20, 30 years from now, how will you look back on this time? How will you have grown from the pain and struggle of living through a pandemic? And what stories will you tell your grandchildren about it? Kirk and I have been talking lately about all of our gratitude for this, as odd as that sounds. We've been forced to pivot, and live differently than we would have ever expected. We're giving up so much, and also we're gaining much more than we could have imagined. We've been given permission to truly slow down and be with one another. We're learning how to adapt and work from home while meeting our kids' needs. When else would we have taken the leap to this lifestyle unless we were forced? It's for that reason that we're absolutely grateful. So where do we go from here, my friends? The future is still bright, and we have meaningful lives to create. This isn't a time to give up, but it is time to dig even deeper into our values and vision for our families. You have a purpose. We all do. It's time to live it and share your worth with the world. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that hope, trust, and love will guide us through this pandemic and aftermath. Have hope in a better future for you, your family, and our world. Trust that what's happening right now is part of a greater plan for the good of our planet and people. Love your people. Send love to your neighbors and friends, and share love with the world through your thoughts, prayers, and beliefs. Whatever your situation right now, however hard it is, know that you are human, and with that comes strength and resiliency. It's who you are and who you will continue being. Sending so much hope, trust, and love your way, my friend. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Hey mamas, if you enjoyed this episode, did you know that coaching with me one-on-one is the fastest and the best way to implement all of these ideas? I teach my clients exactly how to stop daily overwhelm, to overcome negativity and that feeling that you're never enough. You know what I'm talking about, right? And we do this so that you can confidently become the mama and woman you've always dreamed of being. There's no shame in getting help. We all need a helping hand. So head to thestreamlinedlife.com/life coaching with Kate Saffle. That's SAFFLE to sign up for a free 50-minute consult with me. And together we'll get clear on all of your struggles and a roadmap for how to overcome them. You and I together, we've got this.